Greetings. This is Dr. Shaumili Mandal, an assistant professor of English at Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya Kamacha, admitted to the privileges of Banaras Hindu University. Dear learners, I am back with the first module and lecture 3. So we are continuing our first module, that is introducing folklore as a discipline, definitions and key concepts, and we are in the third lecture, that is folklore, and we will talk about the multi-dimensional approach in folklore. Now, I am going to say you about the 6 aspects which we are going to talk in this lecture. The first aspect I'll talk about is cross-cultural. The second, economical. The third, functional. Fourth, religious. Fifth, national. And sixth, psychoanalytical. Now, I'm going to explain you about each of them. The first thing we come is about the cross-cultural. Prehistoric sacrificial fertility rituals generated myths, which in turn gave rise to modern rites and cultural practices. Culture is pluralistic in nature. Due to the homogeneous blending of beliefs of the individuals constituting folk. Folklore helps in identifying universality of culture, adaptation and adoption of customs having potentials for intercultural exchanges. Folk culture often reflects fundamental human experiences, emotions and values that are commonly accessible in the whole society. These include birth, life and death. All cultures of folklore have these events. For example, in many cultures, there are rituals and beliefs associated with the birth of a child. Like I have discussed in the earlier lecture about the rites of passage and customs or stories about the afterlife or death. These reflect the universal human concerns about the cycle of life. We also have tales, of love and family. Tales of romantic love, family bonds, and parent-child relationships are common across cultures, whether through fairy tales like Cinderella or oral traditions about family ancestors and love stories. These themes appear universally. Also, some of the folk tales or stories we read have moral lessons, as we have the Panchatantra or the Aesop's fable. Folk cultures around the world share similar archetypes and symbols that recur in their myths and beliefs. These figures or symbols serve as representations of common human themes or forces. Like we have the hero's journey. The hero's journey is an archetype which is nearly universal. Also, we have the supernatural beings in folk cultures, and they represent the larger force of morality or nature. These includes gods, spirits, and creatures like dragons, fairies, ghosts, and giants, which appear in different forms in various cultures. Also, we take animals as symbols. Many folktales and traditions use animals as symbols or characters. The fox, wolf, tortoise, rabbit, and snake appear in many cultures' folklore, representing a range of human qualities and lessons such as wisdom, trickery, or bravery. Certain themes run through the folklore of every culture, and it also creates the myths, which we'll be talking about in the course later. We have the creation myths, the fundamental idea of origin of life and human existence. Also, we find these myths in the Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Native American mythology, and also Indian mythology. We also have flood myths. The flood myths of that which wipes out civilizations and leads to renewal are found in many cultures. For example, the very famous Noah's Ark story in the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and flood stories in Hinduism and in the Mayan civilization. We also have the concept of good versus evil in our folklore, as folklore around the world deals with the conflict between good and evil, and often represented by characters such as heroes versus villain Nowadays, we don't say hero and villain. Nowadays, we say antagonist and protagonist, or gods versus monsters. This theme is not only seen in fairy tales but also in religions, where good is associated with divinity and evil with darkness or destruction. These intercultural exchanges have been passed down and adapted between cultures. For example, as I already told you about the story of Cinderella, and it has been borrowed and reinterpreted similarly in other folklores too. Also, we have the shared symbols, which we share across cultures as the tree of life, the snake appearing in various forms, reflecting shared human ideas about life, death, rebirth, and reformation. Now we come to the next part, economical. Folk art is an indispensable part of every modern economy. Handicrafts hold both potential and aesthetic ambience, bringing local and transnational customers. These folk products, through its usage, keeps alive the lore behind it. For example, the churning process of extracting butter from milk. Folk festivals, markets, and craft fairs often attract tourists who are interested in experiencing traditional arts, crafts, music, and food. This brings in direct income to local businesses such as hotels, restaurants, shops, and transportation services. For example, visitors to rural villages or heritage towns often spend a lot of money buying local crafts, handicrafts, and clothing and food products. Tourism based on folk culture can create a wide range of employment opportunities in local communities, from hospitality jobs to artisans, performers, and cultural heritage workers. Cultural heritage tourism can generate employment in sectors, as I have said, like craft production, artwork sites, and cultural education. The Rath Yatra festival in Puri and other folk major cultural events offer thousands of jobs to local people, including performers, food vendors, artisans, and guides. The Kyoto Handicraft Center in Japan not only displays but also offers demonstrations and workshops for tourists showing how the artisans create their handicrafts. Cultural tourism can recreate opportunities, as I have said, and we have the example of the Andean community in Peru, which has gained international recognition for its textile traditions, including the production of alpaca wool products. Also, we have tourism centered around folk culture grows. It often leads to the development of infrastructure, improvements in transportation, accommodation, communication network, and public services, which benefits both tourist and local. With increased demand from tourists, governments may invest in better roads, airport facilities, and cultural centers to showcase and support the local folk culture, further boosting the local economy. For example, the ongoing Kashi corridor in Varanasi focuses on promoting indigenous folk culture, and the tourism it generates has led to improvements in roads, transportation, and cultural facilities in the region. Folk festivals, which celebrate certain local traditions, music, dance, food, are also central to folk tourism. So, in a way, we can say that everything is very pertinent for tourism, cultural tourism, and folk tourism. Folk festivals are seasonal and they kind of attract a huge number of tourists, which actually leads to generate the revenue of the state. While tourism can be a powerful tool for economic growth, it is essential to ensure that it is sustainable and respects the culture it promotes. Over tourism can sometimes threaten the authenticity of folk traditions. For example, the hand-woven bamboo baskets are eco-friendly and durable. It indirectly paves the way for alternative farming without use of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. Also, in this slide, I have used the photo of a woman weaving hand-woven baskets. And you can see in the photo her skill and the number of varieties in color she has of her baskets. Next, we are going to talk about the functional approach of folklore. Folk functions as a cultural socialization process, varying with every change of place, state, social position, and age. Arnold van Gennep, I think I'm mentioning him in like mostly all my lectures because he is one of the important folklorists we have. Not a folklorist in true sense, but he paved the way how to study the rites of passage. As I have said, emphasized on the transition from the profane to the sacred. Folklore also functions as a connection to the historical process of the society reinforced through performances. Folk culture often represents the shared heritage of a community or region. It unites people by connecting them to their history, traditions, and roots, giving them a sense of pride and belonging. This collective identity can help reduce divisions based on ethnicity, religion, or social class. Folk culture encourages interaction between different groups, allowing them to learn about and appreciate each other's customs and traditions. This exchange helps us to break down stereotypes and promotes mutual respect. Like in my previous lecture, I said you about the Chhat Puja. And now, though Chhat Puja is originated, it's mostly followed in Bihar, UP, Nepal, and other places. But now it has become a pan-Indian thing. And that pan-Indian thing is actually helping people to connect with each other, to bond with each other, and create a better folk culture for us. Folk festivals are usually open to all members of a community, as I said, and often transcend religious and cultural boundaries. These festivals help to create an atmosphere of inclusivity where people from different walks of life can come together to celebrate common values such as love, peace, prosperity, and also bonding. Folk arts and crafts often reflect the region's history, beliefs, and lifestyle. The stories, we have many stories in the folk tradition, and these stories are passed through generations, promoting empathy, tolerance, and understanding. We also have folk songs who are very much functional to the folk culture as they often convey messages of love, harmony, and social justice, transcending the difference of language and culture. For example, when we listen to a music and we are very much, kind of liking the music and the vibe of it, we do not see in which language the song is sung. Rather, we enjoy it like we are listening it to our mother tongue. That's what music does to us. And folk music is also appreciated by most of the people in the society. Music has a unique power, as I said, to unite people, and regardless of the cultural backgrounds. Folk rituals, even when connected to ritual beliefs, often have a communal nature that emphasizes unity and cooperation. These practices create opportunities for individuals from various backgrounds to join in common activities. As I've said, folk songs, performances, and dialogues can act as a platform for addressing grievances and finding common good too. In the photo which I have attached, you can see that there are a group of women who are decorating a rangoli with earthen lamps filled with oil. And we can see that there is a shared bonding amongst the females who are decorating it. It's not necessary that each of them know each other. But this incident, which I have taken, the photo, it's a photo of the festival Dev Dipavali in Varanasi, which is revered in Varanasi, and now it has become more famous and people flock to the state for during this festival. So it's not a festival actually, it's a day where we celebrate and we pay obeisances to our ancestors, as it is believed that our ancestors come to the earth, like if we put in simple words, they come to the earth to take obeisances from us, to take respects from us. So the women who are decorating the rangoli with the lamps might not, as I said, know each other, but they have a shared bonding. You can say an unspeakable shared bonding, that they are doing the same thing in a proper manner, together and beautifully. Next, we come to the national uh, approach of folklore. Folklore infuses nationalistic and ethnic emotions through the process of development, preservation, and collection of literature, language, and traditions. The Grimm brothers, as I have mentioned in the first lecture, served the impetus for the recording and publishing of folklore material in England, which in turn developed English pride. Folk culture reinforces, as I have said, a sense of belonging to a particular nation by highlighting common customs, traditions, and values. I have discussed a bit in the previous slide about the folk music, dance, crafts, and festivals becoming symbol of the nation's cultural heritage, helping individuals feel connected to their collective identity and history. Folk culture often preserves stories, legends, and historical events that are integral to a nation's growth. Through oral traditions, storytelling, and folk art, significant episodes in the nation's history are kept alive, allowing people to reflect on their struggles, victories, and triumphs. Folk culture has the ability to bring together people, as I said, of different ethnicity. Here, I have attached a photo of St. Patrick's Day, which is celebrated in Ireland. You can say it's a national festivity in Ireland. And also in Scotland, we see the bagpipes and the Scottish kilt are deeply ingrained in the national consciousness. These elements of folk culture have become symbols of Scottish pride. And we have days such as St. Andrew's Day and Edinburgh military tattoos. They're also distinct to Scotland's identity with the United Kingdom. They are very distinct actually. And often, folk culture, along with its nationalistic fervor, unites and aligns the nation's symbols, slogans, and ideals, embedding these ideas into everyday life. Through folk songs, as I have said, we make a sense of national unity. It highlights the folk culture and reinforces, I'm saying again, the idea that the nation has something special and valuable to offer to the world, fostering a sense of national pride and cultural pride. Folk song and folk culture is integrated into national narratives, becoming a key part of the collective memory and national consciousness. The stories, the songs of the folk serve to illustrate nation's journey, struggles, and achievements. Next, we come to the approach of the psychoanalytical approach. The Austrian psychoanalyst or psychologist, we say, Sigmund Freud, associated dreams with myths, where myth is actually symbolic expression of the collective consciousness of a community or a culture. We also have Levi Strauss, one of the very famous anthropologists, who proposed a structuralist theory for myth, where myth can be broken into smaller units like mythemes on the basis of binary oppositions. Folk culture represents the collective consciousness of a community, showcasing shared beliefs, values, and psychological traits that bind people together. Through folklore, as I have said, music, art, and ritual, human communities express their common thoughts, feelings, and ideals, which often reflect universal human experiences. Folk traditions often involve symbolic rituals that reflect the psychological need for structure, order, and continuity. These rituals help individuals and communities navigate life transitions, cope with challenges, and affirm their place within the larger cultural and social fabric. Archetypes, deeply rooted in folk culture, often represents universal patterns of behavior and themes that resonate with the collective unconsciousness. Folk stories and myths often deal with psychological and emotional themes such as conflict, desire, redemption, and the struggle between good and evil. They allow people to explore complex emotions and conflicts that they might not be able to perceive or they might not be able to express directly. We always say that art is a form of expression. And if you are unable, and I think this line suffices that if you are unable to express directly, you can express it through the folk art or art in general. Folk culture often serves as a means for individuals and communities to process emotions, as I have said, particularly difficult or traumatic ones. Folkloric narratives and songs frequently deal with themes of loss, exile, longing, and survival, which mirrors the psychological need for catharsis and emotional release. We have the term catharsis from our first theorist we have, that is Aristotle. In folk culture, nature is often symbolic of human emotions and states of mind. Mountains, rivers, forests, animals are frequently used as metaphors for the human psyche, representing aspects of the human experience, such as conflict, the subconscious, or the journey towards self realization. Folk culture often reflects unconscious psychological processes, particularly through the use of symbols, dreams, and mythological motifs. As I've said, that they have talking animals, magical transformations, or impossible quests that tap right into the unconscious mind and giving expression to desires, fears, and subconscious conflicts. As I've said, that people may be unable to fully understand or fully explain themselves. As I've said, they offer a means for catharsis. And what do you know by catharsis? An emotional purging that helps individuals and communities process intense feelings. And also, folk culture provides mechanisms for psychological defense, helping individuals and communities manage anxiety, uncertainty, and fear. Myths, legends, folk stories can sometimes be comforting to us. They might provide us the comfort which we normally don't get from human beings. And it helps in the dealing of trauma or emotional wounds. Also, they are a part of the folk healing practices, such as herbal remedies, to understand the intrinsic functioning of the human psyche, as I have said, offering symbolic comfort, reassurance, and a way to reconnect with the community. In the next slide, we are going to talk about the religious approach to folklore. Folk religion is different from formal, organized Shastric religion, and it gets manifested in the belief systems, which is largely communicative and collective. Performing rituals together is a very important constituent and creates a strong sense of cultural knowledge, transmitting religious symbols and maintaining the bridge from the past to the present. Folk culture often reflects the individual's personal journey of faith rather than adhering to a specific religious creed. This makes it more accessible to people from different religious backgrounds. Also, folk culture emphasizes faith in supernatural forces, spirits, or deities that might not be recognized by formally institutional religions. These faith systems often allow for a more personal and flexible understanding of the divine, which is closely tied to the natural world and community life. Folk culture frequently treats faith as a way of living and interacting with the world, rather than as a set of rules to be followed. Here, I have attached a photo of the Shinto religion, and we can see it's a kind of, you can say, a procession by the Shinto religion. Now, I would like to give you an example of the Shinto religion. We have the very famous Studio Ghibli movies, which are directed by Hayao Miyazaki. Miyazaki doesn't follow Shinto religion, but he is influenced by Shinto religion. And Shintos are the religion, the Shinto, it's actually indigenous to Japan. And it deals with the spirits, the deities, you can say not the spirits and deities and divinities. And they have the concept of kami, which are the spirits, which we see very much in the movies of Hayao Miyazaki. In one particular movie, which I would like to give an example of, is Spirited Away, where we see the kami kind of comforting the main character, Chihiro, and kind of helping her to get back to her family. So we can say that modern art or modern society also uses the examples of indigenous religion like Shinto and kind of has made it westernized, not westernized, it has opened the way or it has shown the Western world and also is banking from it. They may not be linked to formal religious teachings, but are rooted in a belief system that expresses the faith of the people. They can involve also prayers, dances, chants, and other expressions of faith that are not necessarily tied to organized religion. In folk culture, faith is often focused on the community rather than the individual, reflecting a belief in the collective spirit and the power of shared experiences. This community centered faith emphasizes the importance of mutual support, solidarity, and trust in the collective power to overcome difficulties. Folk culture often uses symbols that resonate with universal human experiences rather than the religious symbols that are tied to one particular faith. These symbols are powerful representations of faith in life, the cycles of nature, on the human connection to the spiritual world. As I have given you the example of Studio Ghibli and this Shinto religion and how Miyazaki uses it, we can say that Miyazaki actually, as I have said, uses the spirit form, the kami, to kind of guide the protagonist in other movies too. For example, we have My Neighbor Totoro, where also we have huge animals who are actually the guiding force for the protagonist. We also have the example of Princess Mononoke, where he also uses the element of Shinto religion. Interestingly, Miyazaki just doesn't use Shinto religion. He uses the Shinto Buddhist religion influences in his movies and shows us how we can imbibe religion and how we can also impart religion through different medias. Not necessarily that we have to have religious processions, but also through art, media, and also influence the society through the audiovisual means. Now, we come to the end of our lecture. Thank you all of you, and we will meet in the next day.